Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 Self-Advocates Conference. All right. Well, let's just get a couple of things out of the way. We do have sign language interpreter, and they will be provided in each one of the breakout rooms also. We also have closed captioning. So if you need closed captioning, just click on the CC button on the bottom, and you will be able to access it now for this main room. And then when we get into our breakout sessions, the moderators will give you instructions on how you can access it. But with that said, welcome. I think this is going to be a great conference. We're going to have lots of great presentations about self-advocacy topics that are important to all of us. And we're going to have some presentations from some of the self-advocacy groups here in Arizona. So you get to learn about them and how you can get involved and just be part of the self-advocacy movement here in Arizona. This is an online conference. It's going to be free. So if you do need the breakout session schedule, it should have been emailed to you. There is a link there so you can see some of the breakout session rooms. And you'll be able to choose your breakout session room when it comes time where there'll be a button where you'll be able to click on whichever room you want to attend. If you have any questions or anything, just feel free to include that in the chat, and we'll be monitoring the chat to see if you have any questions. So with that said, I think what we want to do is we're going to first talk about self-advocacy. This is a self-advocacy conference, but it is a topic that is sometimes new for a lot of people. So we just want to give a general talk about self-advocacy. So I'm going to introduce Juliana Huerena, and she's first going to have us talk about self-advocacy.
Thank you, George. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon for the people who have joined us from the other side of the country. Let me put this in. All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about the self-advocacy movement. And what is self-advocacy? Self-advocacy means being in control of your own life with the right supports. And it also means being part of your own community and the community being a part of you. Now, who is a self-advocate? You are a self-advocate if you have ever spoken up for what you believe in. You are a self-advocate if you have taken responsibility for your life in some way. And you are a self-advocate if you have ever questioned people's expectations of you. So let's talk about how self-advocacy got started. There was a self-advocacy movement, and in 1968, there was a group of people with disabilities in Sweden, and they had formed a group, and Dr. Bengt Nirji was the one who had made this group. So what happened is he talked about that people with IDD were able to choose what they wanted to do, and as a group decide together what they wanted to do. And a quote from him is, "To be allowed to be human means to be allowed to fail." So let's talk about how it came about in the United States. So self-advocates from Oregon organized a meeting and planned their own conference, and about 600 people from all across the United States joined in 1974. And some of the things that they talked about, and this is their quote, "I'm tired of being called retarded. We are people first." And so with that, they had the first People First conference. Now there are over 1,200 self-advocacy groups across the country. Now, what are self-advocacy groups? Self-advocacy groups are independent groups of people with all kinds and types of disabilities, and they're all working together on a common cause. We help each other take care and charge of our lives and fight discrimination. Self-advocacy teaches us how to make decisions and choices that affect our lives. And in that, we can be more independent. Now in Arizona, we have several groups that we have been working together. We have People First of Arizona. We have Inclusive Empowerment Network. We have Self-Direct of Nogales, Arizona. Self, Athletic Leadership Council, and the Northern Arizona Tribal Disability Coalition. And we'd like to welcome you all to this conference. Now, the group that I just mentioned have formed a coalition, a self-advocacy coalition. And some of the things that we're working on is this conference. We also have Let's Talk Zoom meetings twice a month. And the group meets monthly. And we always have a newsletter that shares all the good work that people are doing in Arizona.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. So as Juliana mentioned, we do have a statewide self-advocacy coalition, and that's what helped us put this all together. It brings self-advocates from around the state, and we're always looking for new members. So if you're interested in being part of the self-advocacy coalition, then you can contact us and find out more information about us on our website. We do have a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks, and it gives us great information about what's going on in the self-advocacy world. So if you would like to receive that newsletter, you can sign up for it by visiting our website and signing up. And at the end of the conference, we will be sending out a sheet where you can give us your feedback and let us know if you want to be registered for that newsletter. So with that said, one of the things that's important about the self-advocacy movement is that it is a national thing. It is, like Juliana said, there are self-advocacy groups from around the country, and each one of them is, or each state is working to increase the self-advocacy movement. And so I wanted to invite some people to talk to us about their self-advocacy experience, what's going on in their states, and how are their self-advocacy groups doing. So with that said, I want to invite Cherie Mitchell and Michael Thornton and Kevin Nunez. So welcome, Cherie and Michael and Kevin. I want to first give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves. I want you to please let us know your name, where you're from, and what self-advocacy groups you belong to. So I'll just call out your names and then let you guys introduce yourselves. Cherie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, so my name is Cherie Mitchell, and I am a self-advocate, and I am a former president of People First of Georgia, and I am the current president of People First of Lithonia Stonecrest, which is one of People First of Georgia's chapters. I work for the P&A in Georgia. It's called the Georgia Advocacy Office in Georgia. And that's about it.
All right, Michael.
Thank you, George. Hi, my name is Michael or Mike Thornton. My pronouns are he, him. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm part of, I guess you could say I'm kind of vice president, but I'm also president of Restoring the Arkansas People First self-advocacy organization. We kind of lost a little bit of contact and stuff due to COVID, but we are going to reboot and redo. I'm also part of several national organizations and part of a program that I've helped Juliana with, and so I'm kind of like, been around and learning and love to meet new people. So thank you for inviting me, George.
Awesome. And Kevin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, folks. I'm Kevin Inez from New Jersey. First off, I want to apologize for being in my bed. I had a caregiver situation today, so I didn't get out of bed when I wanted to. Life happens. I am the de facto president of People First Berlin County, New Jersey. I am the vice chair of the New Jersey Disability Council. And I have cerebral palsy, and I'm so glad to be here. I've also served on several national committees.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I want to start, and then these questions, I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and I'll let you guys, each one of you guys, give your response. So the first question that I have for you guys is, how did you first start getting involved in self-advocacy? Go ahead, Sherry. Why don't you first tell us?
Well, I became a person of disability, and I got involved at the Center for Independent Living. Is where I got introduced to self-advocacy and People First.
All right. And Michael?
Sure, I kind of got involved several years ago. I had always wanted to do something disability-wise and didn't know how, but I was invited to be part of our LIN program here in Arkansas. It's the first self-advocate training. And LIN, if people do not know, is Leadership Excellence on Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. And it's an interesting program. And in it, I learned more about who I was and how to advocate, how to work with others about disability stuff. But I've also started getting involved with our People First several years ago. And so I'm kind of growing as I go along. And I'm learning from others is what really helped me to understand more about myself. I will give credit where credit is due, that I learned from a great Arkansas advocate, two great Arkansas advocates, and that's Julie Petty and Eric Treat on how to advocate. And so they both taught me well on different things. So it's kind of like, but I've learned a lot from other national advocates too. So it's kind of been fun, and kind of enjoying things. So
Nice.
Thank you.
Kevin, how did you first start getting involved?
Yes, I have a really kind of bizarre story. I grew up where advocacy was kind of a dirty word, not because they didn't want advocacy in my family. They just thought that, okay, well, people with disabilities kind of just have to go along with the flow. When I was leaving high school, I was given the application for Partners in Policymaking of New Jersey. And that was literally like an eye-opening experience. For me, it was like putting on glasses for the first time. You didn't know what you couldn't see until you put on your glasses, right? So same thing. I didn't know you could advocate for transportation or rights or anything like that. So, and because of Partners in Policymaking that was run by the New Jersey Council on Disabilities, I kind of just was a child of the council, so to speak. So I kind of just fell into it.
Yeah, Partners in Policy is a great program. So we do that, have that here in Arizona. And if you guys ever get a chance to participate in it, it's it's a good thing to learn more about what's going on in the disability world. And I see that there is a question on the chat by Pavlina, and I will ask that question towards the end. So I do see you, and if you guys have questions, I will definitely ask them. Which leads us to the next question. So you guys are part of self-advocacy groups, and that's one of the things that we're trying to develop here in Arizona is, develop our self-advocacy groups, strengthen them. And, of course, that includes just meetings. So tell us a little bit more about your self-advocacy groups. In particular, how does your self-advocacy group meet, and how often do they meet?
So who do you want to go first?
Go ahead, Cherie.
Yeah, so since COVID, before COVID, and we're starting to do it again, we met in person once a month. During COVID, we were doing Zoom. And it was very eye-opening because we realized that also that there was a need for some of us to meet later in the day so that those who are working would be able to attend. So some of us meet earlier in the day via Zoom, and some of us meet in the evening via Zoom.
Yeah, I think the COVID really made us dependent on the technology, and in a way, we're really grateful for it because had this virus occurred, 10 years ago, or we probably would have never been able to meet because the technology just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Michael, tell us a little bit about your self-advocacy groups.
Our state self-advocacy group started using a technology that's freeconferencecall.com. It's not Zoom, and there's some problems that I personally think with something like that. One, it's hard to use captions on it for anyone that may need the captions to read, and two, just being able to direct the meeting a little bit better. We were meeting about once a month, so we kind of stopped right now in the middle of our revamp, but we are going to start back with using Zoom, and so that we can have the technology. I agree, Sri. On the timing, it's kind of difficult because some people work, some people don't. Some people, with their personal assistant, may or may not be able to get on the call and stuff. So trying to find a time that works best for everyone, and preferably to meet at least once in person every other month would be what we need to do as a state and also as local chapters. But right now we're just going to focus on the state portion and then work on local chapters as we go along. So thank you, George, for the question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think COVID did really affect our self-advocacy groups, and it is really a time to rebuild, I think, as we start to come back from this. Kevin, tell us about your self-advocacy groups and how often do you guys meet?
Yes, like I said, in New Jersey, People First is an extension of the council. So even though during COVID, People First never technically shut down, it was kind of on life support, just because nobody wanted to go anywhere. So what we wanted to do was do a hybrid model where we're gonna have two kind of presidents, two co-chairs. One's going to be in the library in person, and one's going to be virtual via Zoom, and just kind of, piggyback off each other that way to make it accessible for folks. Because one of the things we found is if you have a mobility issue and you need a caregiver, it's difficult to get a caregiver for all day when the event itself is only an hour, hour and a half. So a lot of people with mobility issues didn't want to go to meetings because they're like, well, it takes me so long to get ready, and the meeting is not really worth it when I take so long to get ready. So we have a hybrid model in place because also it gives time for those people who are not tech savvy.
Yeah, and it provides options for accessibility to go with a hybrid model. And some people are better at meeting in person, and some people need to use the online version. So I think that's a really good idea for self-advocacy groups.
Yep.
So along those lines of having a hybrid model to get people involved, the next question is, how does your self-advocacy group, or what does your self-advocacy group do to keep its members involved and coming back to the group? Cherie?
Well, I think that one of the things you have to realize is that people don't want to just go to a meeting for the sake of going to a meeting. They want to be accomplishing something, whether it's learning or making a difference in their own community.
So they have to have a purpose, you're saying?
Yeah, and a goal. And I think that you need to be accomplishing those purposes and goals.
Okay.
Yeah, because like my chapter, we have, for a while, we had a disability awareness project that we did. And every member got to speak about their disability. And then, and what they wanted people to know about their disability. And when we finished that, we started an entrepreneur project because a lot of our members were either wanted to start their own business or actually already had their own business. And then we are doing also, we're starting next month, a self-advocacy training because people want to become better at self-advocacy. And we've done things like we saw a need for a crosswalk in our little town because I actually live in a little town called Lithonia, which is in the suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. So we got that crosswalk. We showed up at the city council's meetings and we said, hey, there's a real need here and there is a public safety issue. And they listened to us. And they did something about it and they created that sidewalk, that curb cut, that crosswalk that was needed. And then another chapter here in Georgia said, you know, we're in South Georgia. This is a rural area. We need public transit. And they went to their county commissioners and they actually got public transit in their little small town. So, you know, never underestimate what a few committed individuals can do.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great thing about being able to get people involved and get them working on an issue that's important to the community, and it just keeps people coming back because they see that they're actually making a difference.
Well, and it feels good when you accomplish something like that. You know, every member of my chapter can say, I played a part in that. I did something to make that happen.
Yeah. Michael, what do you think about that? I mean, how do you, I know you're saying that you guys are rebuilding, but how do you get people involved? How do you keep them coming back?
Well, we've got several people that are asking to be part of it, and currently I've had to talk with them and so just say, we're working on trying to figure out where we are and what we need to do. One of the things that I can suggest on keeping people coming back is to celebrate your victories. Throw a party, like what Suri and the crosswalk. Throw a crosswalk party, have free or have little pastries or whatever, or throw whatever you're doing, throw a party, celebrate. Because when you celebrate your victories, you look forward to the next victories and stuff, and you can figure out what you need to do next and talk about it. So, that's what I'm gonna suggest that as we start to rebuild, we throw a party every time we do something to accomplish that. So,
yeah.
Oh, that's a great advice. Yeah. Celebrate the little victories or the big victories. Show people that you're making a difference and celebrate those differences. The self-advocacy work is never over. And it sometimes feels a little difficult, and it seems like you're pushing a stone up a hill. But if you're able to make a difference and celebrate those victories, then the work doesn't seem so hard. Kevin, how do you guys keep people coming back and getting people involved?
Right now we have kind of a strong strategy since our first meeting will be literally next month. Our first strategy is to have an educational component. So for the first one, we're gonna do advocating on the importance of preventative health, mammograms, prostate exams, colonoscopies, things like that. Berlin County is a very it's a very diverse community of color, and we know that people with disabilities and people of color are often predisposed to colon cancer and things like that. So that's our educational component. And the second component is going to be, again, like Cherie said, finding a local issue like a crosswalk or something like that, and ask the members, okay, what's the issue that affects this county, and how can we address it as a newly formed committee? And snacks do help.
Snacks do help. Finding an issue that's important to you, celebrating the victories, and bring pizza.
And have fun.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how well our conversations flow when there's food involved. Okay. So there is a question that did come up in the chat. Hold on, let me find it. Hold on, let me.
She says the question is, why is belief important to self-advocates? It came up twice.
There's that one, and then how do you advocate for yourself for everyday use? And so I part of the purposes of self-advocacy groups is to teach self-advocacy skills, right?
Yep.
So talk about that a little bit. I know that we teach self-advocacy skills, not just advocating for in the community, but advocating for yourself. How does your self-advocacy groups tackle that?
Well, here in Georgia, first of all, we make a real intentional effort to make sure that everyone gets the chance to speak. And our sergeant of arms is tasked with the duty of making sure that the president knows if someone hasn't spoken, so that they get a chance to speak. And then we also believe that it's a great place for people to practice and become comfortable speaking in front of other people. Because some people get nervous when they're in a group and speak out. And then we also make sure that everyone feels like their voice was important, because it is. It is. You know, the only bad question is the one not asked.
Michael, do you want to add anything?
I was going to add that, you know, when it comes to personal self-advocacy skills, you know, if someone, I'll give an example. Back about 8 months ago, in a former capacity, I was doing a training, and this lady, young lady, I was talking about wanting to learn how to drive, and you know, I kind of gave her tips on, you know, what she could do, you know, to talk about how to go through the steps of wanting to learn how to drive. First, you just need to know, identify someone that can help you do it, help teach you and be patient with you. But, you know, but second, you got to know when you want to learn, what you want to do, where you want to do it, and how you want to do it, and identify the steps. And that's the best way when it comes to anything self-advocacy related, is identify the process. And as I said earlier, as you do each step in the process, throw a little party, you know, even if it's for yourself, you know, maybe go out and get something to eat, or some coffee or something, or some pastry, something to celebrate your step in the process. And that way you can realize, okay, this has been done. Here's, you know, what the next step is, you know.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion on learning on personal self-advocacy, you know. And if you need help, reach out and ask someone to get for help, you know, to give you tips, not to tell you what to do, but give you tips, you know. And that's what you call supported decision making too. So, you know.
Yeah. Good. And just a selfless plug, there will be a presentation on supported decision making later on in the day. Kevin, how do you guys teach the self-advocacy skills for everyday use?
For me, what I tell people is break your big goals down into smaller goals, as small as you need them to. Let me give you a good example. For years, I wanted to write a book. It took me 10 years to write this book, but I just broke it down. Some days I just wrote a paragraph. Some days I wrote a page. And my other goal was to actually make my house a smart house. So what I did was, after I, sold the book on Amazon, I used the funds to actually make my home a smart house. So I took my goals and I broke them down, and I built them on top of each other. That makes it. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Especially if you could teach people how to, break it down into smaller goals and celebrate those goals and learn from each other in the self-advocacy groups. I know that, the best thing about self-advocacy groups is that it has people with all sorts of different experiences. And so what you may be going through, somebody else has already gone through, and you can learn from each other just by talking about what's going on in your life. And then pretty soon somebody's going to go, oh yeah, I did that, or that happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it, or here's what I did, or here's what I learned from that experience.
Exactly. Like, let's say you want to meet with the legislator. That can be very intimidating. So you can say, okay, goal for day one is, let me write down what I want to say to the legislative staff before I even call the office. So break it down. Don't get so overwhelmed by the bigger goal that you get frustrated by it.
Oh yeah. And so with that comment, there is another question, and this goes back to the self-advocacy skills and advocating for yourself and others. How do you how does your group teach people to advocate publicly? You know, some people are scared to speak publicly, or they might be nervous that maybe they might get in trouble if they speak publicly, or you know, if they start voicing their opinions, you know, they might not feel comfortable doing that. So how do you guys handle that? What do you tell people with that are your members about advocating?
Well, the thing about it is, first of all, you gotta believe that you have something important to say. And one of the things that a lot of our members started realizing when they started talking about issues that they had experienced, and then they found out other people were experiencing those issues. And then they started to realize, what I got to say can help somebody else. And that gave them the courage to speak up. Was the fact that they could help someone else was important to them. I think it's something that's important to each and every one of us. And being able to do that is, number one, it's important, and number two, it makes you feel good about yourself.
Right. So I mean, as long as you see that you're helping someone, it gives you the courage to be able to say, I want to tell my story. I want to speak up so that others may not go through what I'm going through, or I can help improve or change something. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I will add, don't be afraid to reach out and connect, because like Sari said, there's somebody else that may be facing the same or similar issues, and you can work together. And I'm going to say something and give credit to a former church who says everything is better in teams. So, if you team up with somebody to help you, and work together, you can do things together, and don't be afraid. You're not alone. You may think you're speaking out, but there's somebody else that is going through the same or similar issues, or someone that would just be willing to help you, to give you strength and comfort, and say, you're doing a good job, and give you tips, like I said. So teamwork makes the dream work. So,
It seems like, and there's a comment or / question is, what are healthy coping mechanisms for public speaking or standing up for others? And I think that, Michael, you sort of touched on that, is working together as a team, and not doing it alone can really, help you speak up.
And starting within your self-advocacy group can help you build up from the talking to the 20 people there to talking to 50 people. And then from there, talking to 100 people. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you build up to it.
And I would say, I would have never guessed I'd be talking to a conference of people in Arizona and be invited to go to another conference later this year. So, but I will have a friend with me there. So, so they will be with me. So it won't be too scary to do that.
What do you think, Kevin? How do you, what are some of the healthy coping skills that have helped you be an advocate?
Let me give you a really good example. When COVID started to slowly wind down, the Disability Action Network of New Jersey did sort of a memorial service for all the fallen advocates that passed away in congregate settings. And I was asked to speak, which was very intimidating because I was literally in front of it was a press conference. So there was media, there was public there. So what I did was I just took 2 minutes by myself. I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything. I just gave myself 2 minutes to just be in the moment before I spoke. And then just by giving myself those 2 minutes to just zone out and not be there, I was ready to go. As far as public teams go, teams are also very important. Us in New Jersey, we created a DSP coalition to advocate for higher wages for our caregivers. In New Jersey, we have DSPs. Other people call them PSAs, but we call them DSP. But that was also a massive campaign of people. And what we did was we had advocates, those who didn't want to speak in public, write letters. And believe it or not, elected officials have staff who have to read all those letters. So if they get 30 letters on the same issue, you better believe it'll come up on their agenda.
There you go. There's more ways of advocating than just speaking up. You can write a letter. If you can tweet a tweet.
Tell a story.
Tell a story. There you go. All right. So yeah, absolutely. So moving on to another topic. One of the main issues that affects self-advocacy groups is outreach, reaching out to the community, recruiting new members, letting the community know about you as a self-advocacy group. So the question is, what does your self-advocacy group do to outreach to the community? Cherie?
So one of the things we do is we look for other groups that have similar needs or goals as us. We reach out to other self-advocates as well. And because of that, we have partnered with seniors. We've partnered with church groups. We've partnered with other organizations. We've partnered with other self-advocacy groups like Georgia NFB. So, it's about finding a common ground.
And if
Yeah.
I can, sorry.
Go ahead, Michael.
If I can go ahead and add to that, sometimes you need to partner with non-disability related organizations.
Yep.
I'm thinking about us partnering up with the Little Rock Chamber of Commerce, and that way you can meet up with businesses and stuff and business owners and talk with them. Meet up if you like to go to a coffee shop, meet up at a coffee shop or meet up with the coffee shop owner, or if it's a privately owned one. Do something that's out of the ordinary when it comes to disability related, because you can be surprised how you can connect with people. And also don't be afraid to meet up. And this will probably come later, but when you're advocating and talking to like staff of legislatures and stuff, sometimes the staff members are your greatest ally because they either personally have someone in their family or know someone, and they can help you connect up with things. So connections make a lot of things happen. So, and So that's how you can do things, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I think those partnerships are important. Even if you're not just partnering with other disability groups, is don't be afraid to rule out non-disability organizations and partners.
When we got the crosswalk, we partnered up with the business that everybody was trying to get to, which was the Family Dollar store. And they collaborated with us and said, yeah, we need this, to the city council. So, you know, one of the things is we got a letter from the store manager and took it to the city council and read it to them, you know, and said, you know, they can see that there's a need. And this isn't just about people in wheelchairs. This isn't just about people with disabilities. It's about children crossing the street to get to the Family Dollar. It's about people who are walking, pedestrians, you know, because the walkability of this city is important to the Chamber of Commerce of this city, because it helps increase business. So we were able to talk about all those common grounds that we had around getting that crosswalk.
Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's important to partner with a lot of organizations. When we did the DSP coalition, or the other states, you guys call them personal care systems, for the high raters, we kind of partnered with the ARC self advocacy group, which is kind of a no-no, because at least in Jersey, there's always a fear of what they call advocate poaching, where they're afraid that one advocate will jump from one advocate organization to another and just kind of leave that one behind. But it was important to get other advocacy groups, um, on board with why we need caregivers. Um, you've got to find bigger issues. In New Jersey, we did a huge campaign against the R word, because the R word was actually in our state constitution. So we had to do a huge campaign on how to get the R word removed from the actual New Jersey constitution. That was the whole entire statewide thing. And it started with a group of phone calls. So you never know how big something is gonna be. A good example too is when you're doing campaigns and awareness, on different events for the public, quote unquote. We had little kits for like hygiene and stuff, and a lot of things we had in there. People were so amazed by. We had nail clippers. For some reason that I find mind-boggling, the quote unquote able bodied community was so fascinated by nail clippers. They ended up taking one of those in the actual hygiene kits, filled with toothbrushes and other toiletries. That it was just something that somebody threw in there. We had to actually order more nail clippers.
Hey, George, if it's all right, can I go back and say something that I said in the chat earlier real quick?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Earlier, this morning, I was looking up quotes and stuff just to read. And I found a quote by the comedian Lucille Ball. I don't know, when it comes to advocacy, it's kind of an interesting thing. And the quote is, I think knowing what you cannot do is more important than knowing what you can. And that's working in your strengths, but realizing your weaknesses are there too. So, and I thought that was a pretty good quote to think about, chew on. So, so.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, knowing what you can work on, knowing what you need to improve in your life, and or improving the community is important. to making a change. There was a question about common ground. We talk about partnerships, and we may not agree exactly with everything that our partners may believe in, or something. We might be working towards different goals, but if we're going to have these partnerships, we got to have common ground. So talk to us a little bit about finding that common ground with some of the partners that you've worked with in your self-advocacy groups. Go ahead, Sheree.
Sure. Well, the thing is to try to focus on what's common and what we can agree on. There's common ground or things and topics that we can agree on. And so we try to focus on that and not focus on the things that are not common ground. Again, with when we were looking at that crosswalk, we made a list of who are other people who would agree with us that crosswalk is important and needed. So, first thing we did is we went to the Family Dollar store, because they were the store that everybody was trying to get to and that were jaywalking there. And then we heard that the City Chamber of Commerce was very much into walkability, that they felt that it was important if they were going to increase business in Old Town Lithonia. So that was another common ground thing that we could agree on, was that being able to get around and walk around town was important. And in having that conversation, we were able to even take this conversation a step further. Once we got to crosswalk, we could talk about the importance of everything being accessible. So ultimately, they redid all the sidewalks in Old Town Lithonia and made that more accessible. There was like 2 stores that it was really hard to get to, and they figured out a way to make it accessible to get there. So, just finding what it is that you can all agree on.
And I'll build on that, George. A few years ago, there's a place out in Little Rock where over by the United Cerebral Palsy offices and building, and there's a housing area, and people with disabilities, especially those in wheelchairs, were having to cross a busy street and go down a busy street in some areas, because there was no sidewalks to get to the Walmart and then come back the same way. And so we were able to successfully work with the local transit company, who had a bus going out to the center, to the housing area, but it turned back around, and people would have to come back downtown and then go on another bus out to the Walmart. Oh, sorry, I said the name. Out to the center and then come back the same way. And we were able to work with them to have 2 buses that just meet up at Walmart and reverse course. That way people could leave from the center, from the housing area, to go shop and then come back without having to change buses in downtown. So it was a win-win for everyone. Plus, it kept people from having to go down a busy street to go shopping. So, and the shopping deal was only like less than a half a mile away, but time-wise, it was over 2 hours. So, so that's kind of what they worked on. So,
if you want, I can pick up off of that. In New Jersey, when we did the campaign against the R word, one of the issues we have in New Jersey is that it's a very small state, but it's a very dense state in terms of population. You have a lot of people, in a very small area. New Jersey, we have areas that are very city and urban, and we also have very small towns in New Jersey with literally one street light and no internet. So it's kind of a weird state that way. So one of the issues we were having was finding an issue that people can get behind because everybody was so segmented in their own little, you know, world. But the R word was a big enough issue um, that we could get the whole state behind it. Because usually what would happen was we had advocacy groups unintentionally competing with each other for the same resources, even within the same organization. So we were able to find the one thing that was big enough for everybody in New Jersey to get behind it and go from there. So if you want to have a coalition of folks, if your goal is to have a team, find a big enough issue to get enough people behind it. Because what happens is there are limited resources, so advocacy fight over the same resource, even though they don't mean to.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all great advice. Is find a common thread in the issue that's important to everyone. You know, as Sheree mentioned, this crosswalk was important for people with disabilities to be able to cross safely across the street. But it was also important for the dollar store because it's good for business.
Yep.
And so they had this common issue and common goal to work towards.
George, there's another question, and I typed the response in the box, but I understand that, you know, there are some people who are visually impaired and need to hear it. So the
Go ahead.
question was, how can you meet and work with mayors, councils in your community? And I typed, the world is run by those who show up. So show up for city and county meetings, for hearings, introduce yourself, make an appointment with them. And then I said, you know, and then when they get things right, say thank you. You know, send them a card saying thank you or an email saying thank you. So I just wanted to make sure that people were able to hear what was in the chat box.
No, absolutely. And to that point, we will have a legislative advocacy presentation later on today in the breakout session. So stay tuned for that. Another plug for the breakout sessions there.
Please and thanks go a long way.
Yeah. And it shows them that you're paying attention.
Yep.
And your care. How do you recruit members to be part of your self-advocacy group? So, you know, self-advocacy groups are important to people with disabilities, but a lot of times people don't even know about them. So what do we do to recruit, to let people with disabilities know about our groups? How do you get the word out there?
Well, just doing things gets the word out. You'd be surprised how I've had people to walk up to me in the grocery store and said, I heard that your group is the one that started the thing to get the crosswalk. Well, I really appreciate that because it scared me to try to cross that street to get to the Family Dollar store. And I was so happy when that crosswalk was put there. So, I mean, making a difference. People will hear you and see you because, again, the world is run by those who show up, you know, and then inviting your friends and family. So in Georgia, People First is a cross-disability organization And we also let anybody who feels passionately about disability issues attend our meetings. So we are very flexible about who can attend our meetings. We welcome everyone. You know, we believe that all means all.
I think you just made Liz Weintraub's ears perk up in DC. If you don't know, Liz is a self-advocate who was able to speak up in Congress a few years ago, and she used the term "all means all" in her testimony. Here in Arkansas, we're the same way. Our bylaws and things do not state that we're just one particular disability, because, as Suri just said, all means all, and there's a lot of cross things when it comes to disability. Some people with developmental disabilities also have some type of physical disability. So you can learn from one another, you can help support, and you can grow your advocacy efforts, and you never know where your connections are going to come from. Because if you help someone else, they'll be there to help support you too. So things. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to add on to that and think about. So
Kevin, how do you guys
Yeah.
recruit people?
Sure. One of the things that I learned from recruiting, especially in modern technology, with younger advocates, there's a generation out there that know they need to advocate, but they've been so used to using the technology that you have to go to the table with things that they know. You have to connect with them on Facebook and Twitter and Slack. Yes, showing up is important. I've met more people in the last 3 years via Zoom and via, social media, especially in the advocacy world, that I probably would have never met in the quote unquote real world, simply because there are a lot of younger advocates that are hungry. But the idea of going to a library to have a social interaction is totally foreign to them. So you have to go meet people where they're comfortable, not where you're comfortable. You have to go outside of your comfort zone into someone else's to make an impact.
Good point, Kevin.
Yeah, meet them where they're comfortable. And I think that the socialization aspect of self-advocacy groups is really important. So they're a great place to meet friends and develop those friendships and those relationships with people. And it helps, keep people coming back, because they're like, hey, I want to meet with my friends. I want to talk. All right. So the next question that I have, and this goes back to what Cherie had mentioned before about having a purpose. What are some of the what is the mission of your self-advocacy group? What are some of the goals? What are you guys working on? What's important to you guys in your states?
So you want me to go first again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Our mission statement for People First of Georgia is making a difference in our communities and supporting one another. And that's what we try to do. We try to make a difference in our communities, and we try to support one another. We feel like peer support should start with us. And not just us, but with me. Look in the mirror. We passed the mirror around one morning and said, Did you see somebody in the mirror? And everybody was like, yeah, well, that's who it starts with. And that's me, you know. So it's important.
Great. Now I got Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson stuck in my head. All right. Michael.
Good one.
Yeah. Sorry, you just said the right thing about the mirror. I've helped with a deal here a few times called Give Respect, Get Respect. And that's one of the things we do is, pass around a mirror where people can look in the mirror and see themselves. First person you give respect to is yourself. So, but also it's a way to see yourself as a person who is a person who matters and advocate. So I have nothing really more to add to that.
Yeah. So what are some of the goals and things that you guys are working on?
Well, we're, like I said, we're working on rebooting and stuff. One of the first goals is to figure out where we are, who we are, who we want to be, who we are and who we want to be, what we want to do. Trying to, see what each of us has strengths in, and then,
Yeah.
maybe have lessons again as soon, not immediately, because we need to find out the strengths of each person first. So that's what we need to do,
Yeah. Kevin, what about you guys? What are you guys working on?
Well, ironically, our first meeting is gonna happen in June. At least that is the plan. We found a library that's along a bus line, so that's accessible for folks. That was one of my main things when I started the group. Or I should say, restarting the group. Um, one of the things is people don't realize this, but people with disabilities really struggle with self-confidence. So one of the things we're going to do is really say what matters to you, and just have people just list what matters to you, and use some of those things that will hopefully uh, interact with each other, and use that to form a mission statement. That's the tentative plan. Is aid as what people don't know what they don't know, but they know what matters to them. So if you ask them, okay, what matters to you, and then go from there, it's easier to say, okay, it's easier to say, okay, what matters to you, and say, what's wrong with you? Start with the positive instead of a negative.
I think that's a great way of figuring out what the group wants to work on, is by just, you start asking yourself, so what's important to me? What's important to me? And then you start sharing that. And then you start seeing that maybe other people share those common things, right? What's important to me? Well, maybe transportation or accessibility or employment. And then you start saying, well, what can we do in those areas so that we address what's important to us in that particular area. So it's a good way of eventually developing the goals and objectives of the group. I know that we've already touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the successes that you have had with your self-advocacy groups? Shuri?
Well, like I told you guys earlier, is about accessibility of downtown Lithonia. We've had some success with getting crosswalks. We've had some success getting a bus restarted that got shut down during COVID. We had success. Another group another chapter of People First of Georgia, which is People First of Fitzgerald, got public transit in a small little southern Georgia town in South Georgia that they didn't have before that. So, the sky's the limit.
Right. And I think success builds upon success.
Yeah.
Right. You start with the one crosswalk, and next thing you know, you're saying, well, here's some other issues about accessibility that
Yep.
need to be addressed, and that brings attention to it.
Yep. It was that crosswalk that led to the conversation with the City Chamber of Commerce about walkability. And because we knew that they believed in walkability, and in having that conversation, we remind them, walkability should include accessibility. And so got those sidewalks redone.
Walkability, rollability.
Yep.
All right. Michael, what's some of the successes that you guys have had?
I sort of mentioned about the buses and everything, the bus still getting where they meet up and cross over. There's a few other things. One of the things that, and I'll just say about building onto walkability and stuff is to make sure that we have access to curb cuts and stuff. There's these things called electric scooters that, I know it's not the scooters that are doing it, it's people leaving them blocking things and not realizing what they're doing. And that's something that I would like to see more work done, is that there needs to be a place where people can park the scooters and keep them away from the walking area, the sidewalk. Maybe have a certain location, kind of like a bike rack or kind of things. And you can do that with just maybe even reverse psychology, not have it where it does anything, but have like a painted parking area or something. It may be a way to kind of get people to think about it. That's something that, when we get started here in Arkansas, I would like to see, because especially here in several of the busier cities. So that's, just my little pet peeve, but I'm sure it's not just mine. Because when it comes to accessibility, you have to think those things are trip hazards, not just for people who are, have a physical disability, someone that just may not see it and just may trip over it. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for asking.
You're getting some agreements in the chat, so seems like you're not the only one that's think that's an issue. Kevin, what are some of the successes that you've had? I know you've touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, as far as advocacy goes, my camera, there we go. Sorry, my camera's been wonky all day. It's been one of those Murphy's Law kind of days. You'll learn, if you're a younger advocate, you'll learn Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen will happen. So, but successes, like I said, our biggest thing, at least in the last 10 years, was the R Word campaign. I can't even believe that was all that long ago now. It started with a bunch of phone calls, honestly. Here's the biggest thing I could say is don't give up. The world's gonna tell you every day to give up. I guarantee you that most times you won't get a call back from a legislator. But if you keep calling, they're gonna answer. If you come with a big enough group, they'll pay attention. If you come with a personal story and make it personal to them. When I went to the disability policy seminar for the first time in 2019, Um, I was very overwhelmed because still little old me in Washington D.C. So I broke the ice by talking about fantasy football. If I knew it was a male legislative assistant, I would talk about fantasy football for like 2 minutes just to break the ice and make it realize that they're human too. And I don't think people forget that politicians and elected officials are human. And they people are so used to seeing the person with a disability on TV as a certain stereotype that they forget that we're humans too. So if you come with a personal story that they can relate to, it really opens up the conversation. So be persistent, be yourself, and tell your story. They can relate to it. They're human too.
Which is a great way to overcome barriers also, which leads us to the last question that I have is, and I know that we've touched a little bit in each one of our responses already, but what are some of the barriers that your self-advocacy groups have faced, and how did you overcome them or are overcoming them? Shuri?
Well, some of the barriers that we faced was just finding a meeting space and a meeting time. And so, that's been a challenge, particularly when COVID had everybody closed their doors. So now people are trying to meet in person, and it's been hard finding places where they could do that. So what we've done, I know that some of ours we've took to meeting in public places instead of in meeting rooms and stuff, right? So one of the things that my group does is every couple of months we'll have a month out and we will meet at the mall. And we'll get over in a quiet area of the mall and have our meeting, but then we'll go and just, have fun together, right? As a way to overcome that lack of a space. The other challenge we had was that a lot of people didn't have access to internet, or they had never used Zoom. So we were scrambling to try to help people get access to internet. So, the really great news is that the government now has a program where people on a fixed income can get internet and get a discount on the cost. So that's very helpful. And then we just supported each other in the technology. There were some people that we just talked them through it. There were some people that we just had to go and sit down with them and practice using it. So, it was just a case of taking it on a person by person level and figuring out, how do we support you?
That's a great thing that you mentioned, is being able to walk through people through some of those barriers, even if it's like just not knowing how to use the technology.
Yeah.
Michael?
I really have nothing more to say because Sari just said what I was about to say. Talking about technology, some of the people have been part of our group don't understand Zoom, and it's like, it's actually easier to use than any other program once you get used to it. So just and access to technology was. With COVID, there was free iPads or free laptops that were given out, and hotspots from some of the organizations. to try to get people access, but, you know, I'll look into the, internet thing too, to try to help people that may not have internet access, or may be able to find lower price internet too. So that's a good idea. Thank you, Sri.
You're welcome.
Yeah, speaking to that, it is a federal program, and you can save up to $30 a month.
Yep.
On your internet bill. So that's a good chunk of change there.
That could be groceries for a week for some people.
Yeah. Kevin.
Exactly. One of the things we found or are finding is that people on the flip side were so used to being isolated after almost 2 years of COVID, that we've had trouble getting them back out into the community. So what we did was, again, we found a library that was on a bus route. We have the hybrid option where you'll have one president on Zoom and one president in person. And the plan is to trade off, so you don't get used to seeing the same person on Zoom. So if you want to see that president or that person, you have to go in person little by little. Because people were so isolated in the last 3 years, that we kind of had to find easy ways to get them back out in the community.
That's such a great way of getting people involved, in a hybrid approach. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being part of this conversation. I hope that this was informative for everybody attending. We get to learn about, what's going on with some of the self-advocacy groups around the country. We got New Jersey in the house. We got Georgia, and we got Arkansas. So it's good to see that the self-advocacy movement is strong throughout the nation. And it's just, I want to thank you guys for being part of this presentation on a Saturday. So thank you, Cherie, Michael, Kevin.
I just want to say, for those of you who would like to know, I'm holding up a Arkansas Razorback just to say full pig suey, so.
Yeah. There
Well,
you go.
I just want to say thank you for inviting us. This was a lot of fun, and I was really honored to be asked to come and speak to you guys in Arizona. So thank you.
Same here. Same here. I would love to come back after being there in late November, early December for the TASK conference. I would love to come back and spend a little bit of time out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So with that.